I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's poppin', my homies? Hope you're doing well, feeling blessed, having a good day, having a good week. This one's going to be a main event rematch, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. And guys, looking at my bets from last week, I had an awful betting card that, in all fairness, should have been even worse than what it was. Because I had Myron Santos and Rufi, that was a loser. And I also had Magomed Ankalaev, which, you know, based on how the judges have been this year, that could have lost. I don't think it did. I do think the right man won in the main event. I do think Magomed Ankalaev clearly won round 2. He clearly won round 4. And round 3 and round 5 are very close rounds. The only clear round that Pereira had was round 1. So I do understand the 49-46 because round 3 and round 5, it can go either way. And round 2 and round 4 clearly goes to Ankalaev. The only clear round for Pereira was round 1. So the scorecards, in my opinion, they were correct. But yeah, my bets just weren't good enough. They weren't good enough. And I should have lost more than what I did. I really should have. But yeah, let's do it again. Let's go. And just before we get into the breakdowns and predictions, guys, I am remonetized. And all the comments from last week, thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. You guys are amazing. Let's do it again. Let's go. Kicking things off on this UFC card, we've got Judice Duben taking on Carli Judice. Now, Carli Judice is so far 0-1 inside the UFC. She also lost on the Contender Series. And it's fair to say, already this early in her professional MMA career, the pressure's starting to mount. She kind of needs to win this fight. Looking at her Contender Series performance, she started well in round 1, but then faded drastically as the fight progressed. Looking at her debut against the very powerful Gabby Hernandez, she had her moments in that fight, but ultimately, she was just too inexperienced for the Brazilian boxer. Now she's fighting someone that's undefeated, which is a good thing in 2025. And arguably, Judice Duben is far less technical than Gabby Hernandez and also Karaskate. Here's the thing though, Judice Duben had a phenomenal knockout stoppage on the Contender Series, and she was a massive plus 800 underdog. Anytime a female fighter can set you down with massive power just like that, you certainly take notice. However, power doesn't always win you fights. Fights aren't always decided based on who possesses more power. And I just think Carli Judice is in a must-win situation. I think her output and her technicality should get the job done to get her first UFC win. So guys, my prediction is going to be Carli Judice to get it done on the scorecards. I just think it's a good fight for her. And I've not seen any of the odds. We're going to check the odds after each prediction. And the first odds. We've got Carli Judice minus 400, minus 350. That's interesting. I mean, that's too much. That is too much. This is women's mixed martial arts. But yeah, I do think Carli Judice gets it done. But to see those odds, wow, wow. Next matchup, guys, we've got two aggressive Brazilian pit bulls going to war here. We've got Josiane Nunes taking on the zombie girl. So looking at the style of Josiane Nunes, she's always walking forward. She's always asking her opponents to stand and trade fight-ending bombs. She's pretty small in terms of height and reach. She's only 5'2". But you know what they say, guys? It ain't about the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. And Josiane Nunes certainly embodies that statement. She's an aggressive Brazilian stand and trade missiles type of fighter. And on the flip side, you've got exactly the same thing. The Brazilian zombie girl. She's known for her stand and trade style. Defensively though, she's awful. From a grappling and wrestling perspective, she's also awful. Both of these fighters want to do exactly the same thing. They don't want to wrestle. They don't want to grapple. They want to rock 'em sock 'em robots in the center of the octagon. And when you give them the smaller UFC Apex octagon to do that in, you know, I'd have to say the UFC's put together a very, very fun fight here. And thinking about the matchup, guys, I do think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be extremely close. If both fighters just stand and bang in the center of the octagon, they're both going to score. They're both going to land. But I do think the zombie girl has taken an unbelievable amount of damage. So I kind of lean towards Josiane Nunes getting the better of the exchanges past the midway point. I do expect Zombie Girl to start aggressive, you know, to be landing early. But when you get 7 or 8 minutes in, the big overhands and hooks of Josiane Nunes, they're going to start to land more and more at a higher percentage. And I kind of think in a very, very close, violent fight, I do think the defense, the poor defense of the zombie girl, I think it's going to let her down once again. So I kind of lean towards the Brazilian pitbull, that is Josiane Nunes. And I'm going to take that as a pick. I'm going to say Josiane Nunes on the scorecards because they're both very durable. You know, zombie girl, she can take punches like it's her job. And it is her job. It is, but the smartest fighters hit and don't get hit. Whereas the zombie girl, she's there to do a lot of damage and also to absorb an insane amount of damage. She's always been defensively very bad. So that's what's going to let her down once again, in my opinion. So the prediction's going to be Josiane Nunes on the scorecards. And looking at the odds, yeah, Josiane Nunes minus 180 and the zombie girl plus 150, plus 140. I do think the odds could be a little bit closer. Just a little bit closer because the matchup is going to be very close, especially early in round 1. You know, both these fighters are going to be standing and landing massive bombs. But I do think as the fight progresses, that's where you're going to see the poor defense of the zombie girl start to fade, start to show the weaknesses in her defense. And that's maybe where you see zombie girl look more than a plus 150. Next matchup, we've got Andre Lima taking on Danny Barez. And I've not picked against Andre Lima as of yet. And I don't believe I've picked against Danny Barez either. Even though Danny Barez has lost a couple times that I've picked him, I've not picked against either of these fighters just yet. But I've got to do that now. I've got to make a prediction against someone. And Andre Lima, he's an undefeated Brazilian. Is it a good thing to be undefeated these days, guys? Is it a good thing? It's apparently not a good thing. It's the year of undefeated fighters getting dusted. So if Andre Lima loses against Danny Barez, it may just be a case of Danny Barez catching him at a weird time, at a good time. But in terms of skill, I do think Andre Lima is very effective with his damaging Muay Thai striking skill set. Punches, kicks, elbows, knees. He can strike and cause damage from different ranges. The calf kicks, they're very effective. They're excellent. He's very composed, is Andre Lima. And on the flip side, I think Danny Barez is certainly a very, very good boxer. But he is 10 years older, with Andre Lima being 26 and Danny Barez being 36. So how does Danny Barez deal with the low kicks? Can he find the chin of Andre Lima before Andre Lima starts to find the low kick? Because once you take away the boxer's base, once you start to compromise the footwork of the boxer, the job of the boxer becomes increasingly more difficult. And I typically favour the Muay Thai striker over just the boxer. So for me personally, the prediction will be Andre Lima. And on the scorecards again. So no stoppage predictions for me just yet, guys. This is another scorecard prediction. And I'm assuming that Andre Lima is going to be a massive favourite. We've got Andre Lima minus 350, minus 340. And that does make sense. You know, Andre Lima, he's looked very good. Even on the Contender Series, when he was starting to slow down against Severino, he showed his skill set. He showed his striking skill set. And inside the UFC, he's looked very decent. Next matchup, we've got Stephanie Luciano taking on Sam Hughes. And guys, I'm going to predict a split decision in this fight. I think Sam Hughes, she's an absolute dog. But she's not blessed with amazing technique. She's not super explosive. Sam Hughes has that dog-like determination. She's not going to stop walking forward. It doesn't matter if you start well in round 1. The fight isn't over. She's kind of similar to Hydra Mill in the sense that she's going to constantly press forward and she's going to pressure the opponent at all times. Here's the thing though. Stephanie Luciano is technically very good with her boxing. And if Sam Hughes is marching forward, she's going to march forward into the punches of Luciano. We just saw a massive robbery between Myron Santos and Francis Marshall. And I kind of think the blood on the face of Marshall is what made the judges do that. So if Sam Hughes is walking forward in a straight line, it's entirely possible that Luciano opens up her nose. It's very possible that Luciano causes good damage to the tough-nosed Sam Hughes. But here's the thing. If you get tired against Sam Hughes, she's going to get takedowns. She's going to smash you on the canvas with nasty ground and pound. She's going to bully the opponent against the fence. She's going to wear you down with the clinch strikes. She's going to teach you a thing or two about heart and determination. I do think round 1 probably goes to Luciano, and round 2 is going to be a very close round. And then in the final round, I think Sam Hughes is going to wear down Luciano. She's going to have her best round in that final round. And I think judges, they typically disagree on very close fights just like this. I'm going to say 29-28 split decision for Luciano. And the reason why I side with the Brazilian, I just think after round 1, there could be some blood on the face of Sam Hughes. And you know the judges, when they see that blood, they're like, yeah, you lost that round. And the odds, we've got Sam Hughes plus 200. Plus 200, man. Again, it's too much. It's just too much. You can't be putting Sam Hughes plus 2. Even if she starts horribly in round 1, loses round 1, you've got Stephanie Luciano minus 240, minus 250, even up to minus 265. That's too much, man. But I do think Stephanie Luciano via split. That's the pick. Next matchup, we've got Josias Musasa taking on Carlos Vera. And guys, we've got an 11-year age gap here with Musasa being 26 and Vera being 37. I'm not really sure why Carlos Vera is still in the UFC. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but we've had some good fighters cut recently, like Taylor Lapalus. And here I am doing a breakdown on Carlos Vera. Guys, we're going to pick Josias Musasa to win this matchup. He showed really nice power on the Contender Series. He fought against a technically good kicker. And if you look at Vera against Rinya Nakamura, Vera kept throwing kicks. His corner was asking for spinning techniques. So you could say it's a similar type of opponent to what Musasa fought on the Contender. And I'd even make the point that it's an easier matchup than the Contender Series opponent. Josias Musasa via KO TKO. I think predicting a KO TKO this time round is super necessary. I expect Musasa to find his chin. I also expect Vera to try to clinch, try to bring Musasa into a wrestling contest, try to get takedowns. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully what happens here is Musasa finds his chin and knocks him senseless, sends him to Shadow City, sends him to the king of Shadow City, Ben Askren. Hopefully it's a complete dusteration. And the odds have Musasa minus 800. Say no more. Say no more. You're getting dusted. Next matchup, we've got Seung Yu versus AJ Cunningham. And we're going to start with Su. So this guy has a wrestling and grappling skill set. He's probably going to follow the right game plan, stay nice and composed on the feet, then get AJ to the canvas where he can impose his wrestling and his grappling. His UFC debut, it was nice. It was a good performance. But the same can't be said for AJ. If you look at AJ's striking defense, it's basically non-existent. AJ wants a stand-up fight. He wants to give us that entertaining fight. But Seung Yu, he wants to display intelligence. He wants to display actual skill. And guys, for some reason, so many people find that intelligent fighting game plan so boring. But for me personally, I understand that fighting isn't just about stand and trade. This isn't WWE. This is the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And to become the Ultimate Fighting Champion, you do need skill. You do need defense. You need a well-rounded game. And I see more of that in the game of Seung Yu. So I'm going to predict Seung Yu to get it done and potentially via submission. And I do expect Su to be a massive favourite. Or not a massive favourite, but... oh, he is. He is. Minus 700. Oh my goodness. I mean, it kind of makes sense. AJ's just a punch bag. So yeah, kind of makes sense. Next matchup, we've got Waldo Cortes-Acosta taking on Ryan Spann. And this is a very interesting fight. Two very different styles here. I think Waldo Cortes-Acosta, he's got a style where he's not fighting at such a high pace. He wants to work off the jab. He doesn't really push the pace. He's just content fighting at his pace. Whereas Ryan Spann on the flip side, this guy wants stoppages. He wants to bulldoze the opponent in round 1. He's got nasty knockout power. But here's the problem with Ryan Spann. Notice how Ryan Spann always quits when the going gets tough. Notice how when adversity arrives, Ryan Spann gets going. And in my opinion, a fight isn't a fight until there's something to overcome. Think about it, guys. If you're fighting someone and they're giving you nothing to worry about, nothing to overcome, is that really a fight? A fight's only a fight when there's adversity to overcome. And Ryan Spann doesn't like to fight once it actually becomes a fight. He's like a bully. You know what I'm saying? He's like a bully that enjoys bullying people. But once someone fights back, he's like, oh, I didn't expect that. I don't want to bully you anymore. No, we're cool, we're cool. He's like that. And Waldo Cortes-Acosta, he is fighting at a slow pace. So maybe Ryan Spann actually does well past round 1. And I'm actually going to make a prediction that I'm never happy to make. I'm actually going to pick Ryan Spann to win this fight, even though he's a quitter. Even though in my definition of what fighting truly is, Ryan Spann isn't a fighter. But I do think the slower pace of Waldo Cortes-Acosta isn't really the way to fight against Ryan Spann. And I kind of think the power of Ryan Spann could be the difference maker. So I'm going to pick Ryan Spann to get it done. And I think he should be an underdog. And he is an underdog. He's a plus 140 underdog. I think he's going to win. That's my first underdog prediction. I do think he's a bit of a quitter. You know, when the going gets tough, he quits. But against someone like Acosta, Acosta's fighting at such a slow pace. There's not much adversity to really overcome. When you fight against Acosta, you're losing against someone that's trying to win on the scorecards. You know what I'm saying? And against someone like Ryan Spann, you want to show him, look, you're a quitter. You want to finish that guy. You want to stop him. So I'm actually going to take the underdog. I'm actually going to pick Ryan Spann as a plus 140. Next matchup, we've got Kevin Vallejos taking on Seung Choi. And Kevin Vallejos is like the Argentine version of Ilia Topuria. If you look at the boxing of Kevin Vallejos, it's very similar to Ilia. He's got excellent hooks in the pocket, a much higher level boxer than Seung Choi. And Seung Choi is a Muay Thai striker. However, Seung Choi has the height and reach. He's also got the experience, but he's going to be fighting in the smaller octagon, which means there's less space to work with, which means more than likely he's got to actually fight. A couple weeks ago, I tried to bet on William Gomis, who's a points fighter. He loves to operate with the space available, and that didn't really work in the smaller octagon. Seung Choi has to throw kicks at Kevin Vallejos. He's got to keep Kevin Vallejos from entering that boxing pocket, and I think eventually he's going to fail. Eventually, Argentine Kev is going to get into the pocket and force Seung Choi to throw down. And that's where the chin of Seung Choi is going to get cracked. He keeps his chin nice and high in the sky. And that's perfect for an excellent, technically sharp boxer like Kevin Vallejos. So in my opinion, round 1 or round 2, KO TKO for Argentine Kev. And the odds have Kevin Vallejos minus 400, minus 450. And that kind of shows you what the bookmaker expects in this matchup. They expect a complete dusteration. And I do agree. I think the Argentine boxing, the similar boxing to Ilia Topuria, that's the pick. Next matchup, we've got Nurgozhay taking on Brendson Ribeiro. And Nurgozhay is 10-0. He's undefeated, which is a red flag. And I can't believe I'm saying that's a red flag. It's not really a red flag. It's a green flag. But in 2025, it's a red flag. Guys, I did bet on Nurgozhay on the contender, and I liked his performance. Technically sharp, composed. He done all the right things in that fight, and he eventually finds a stoppage. Whereas Brendson Ribeiro, an explosive Brazilian striker who just about got his first win against Kyle Machado, and just about doing enough against Kyle. In my opinion, that is a red flag. He does have explosive punching power. And, you know, being explosive with the punches, that can win you fights. It can win you fights against anyone. And Brendson Ribeiro can definitely set down any opponent. But again, I think the composure of Brendson Ribeiro is lacking at times. I think he's a little bit one-dimensional. And I do expect Nurgozhay to remain undefeated, which is a tough thing to do. In 2025, it's tough to stay undefeated. But I am going to predict that. I'm going to predict Nurgozhay to get a KO TKO past round 1. That's the pick. And I do expect him to be a big favourite. The odds have got Nurgozhay minus 340, minus 360. So yeah, the bookie's saying, look, Nurgozhay in his UFC debut, he's a sure pick. And I agree. Next matchup, we've got Blackshear taking on Cody Gibson. And this is a very decent matchup. I think Blackshear has excellent jiu-jitsu. Anytime you can pull off a twister submission in a high-level mixed martial arts fight, that kind of proves how good you are at grappling. And I also think despite how easily he got dusted by Montel Jackson, he does have power in his strikes. He can cause good damage on the feet. But one knock I do have on Damon is his cardio's kind of dusty. Whereas Cody Gibson on the flip side, this fighter has excellent cardio. He's always pressing forward. He can wrestle. He can grapple. He can fight at such a high pace. Defensively though, Defensively speaking, he's not that good. You know, he'll walk forward and receive a lot of damage. And I'm sure Blackshear is going to have his opportunities to land fight-ending bombs against Cody Gibson. And I'm also sure that Blackshear is going to have his opportunities to lock up a nice submission win. But something tells me that Cody Gibson and his relentless pressure may be enough against Blackshear, who's going to slow down midway into this fight. And I'm expecting Cody Gibson to be a nice underdog in this fight because Blackshear arguably has the finishing upside. He's got more chance to find a stoppage. But I do think Cody Gibson can just about win a 29-28. So I guess my prediction is going to be Cody Gibson via split decision. And I'm sure he's going to be an underdog. Now checking the odds. We've got Cody Gibson plus 350. Oh my goodness. I mean, I thought he was going to be an underdog. He is an underdog, but he's a massive underdog. And I'm still rolling with that. I'm still rocking with that. Cody Gibson, that's my pick. Next matchup, we've got Alexander Hernandez taking on Holobaugh. And guys, as we know, Alexander Hernandez has greatly underachieved in his UFC career. When he first got to the UFC, he introduced himself in spectacular fashion. However, after that Donald Cerrone fight, his career just kind of spiraled out of control. He's got excellent wrestling. He's explosive on the feet. He's a strong competitor. But it all depends which Anthony Hernandez is going to show up. Sometimes his cardio's off. Sometimes he quits. Sometimes he wins early, then loses the rest of the fight. Sometimes it's like he doesn't want to be inside the UFC octagon. And I think Holobaugh, on the flip side, certainly wants to be inside the UFC octagon. But he's now 38 years old. He's an old school fighter. He kind of reminds me of the olden days in the UFC, when everyone had that tough nose style, when everyone had that tough man's defense, you know, stand and trade, spar hard every day. He reminds me of the olden times, and I kind of feel the sport has passed someone like Holobaugh. But all Holobaugh has to do this weekend is break Anthony Hernandez, break someone that's quite breakable. And it all depends what Anthony Hernandez is going to turn up. If you get the Hernandez that's going to get takedowns past round one, the Hernandez that's going to box effectively on the back foot, use the fence when he needs to use the fence, find nasty ground and pound. If you get a good Anthony Hernandez, I think he can certainly defeat someone like Holobaugh. But we just don't know which Anthony Hernandez is going to show up. For me personally, guys, I'm actually going to predict Anthony Hernandez to win on my scorecards. It should be a close fight, but it all depends which Anthony Hernandez is going to show up. I think he's going to be in the region of -180 up to -220. Yeah, -205, -210, -225. And guys, those betting odds do make sense to me, but it all depends which Anthony Hernandez is going to show up. If a good Anthony Hernandez shows up, he's going to win this fight. We're going to see this weekend. Next matchup, we've got Chidi Bang Bang Njokuani taking on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. And this is going to be Muay Thai striking versus Capoeira striking. Now, Chidi Njokuani is the Muay Thai striker and Zaleski is the Capoeira striker. Both striking skill sets are very effective. But in my opinion, the Muay Thai striking is far superior to the Capoeira striking. And I just think Chidi Njokuani has the better striking skill set. Chidi Njokuani has amazing kicks, and so does Zaleski. But the Muay Thai kicks just make more sense than the crazy spinning kicks of Zaleski. And Zaleski has got the Muay Thai striking skill set too. He can throw Muay Thai kicks. But in my opinion, Chidi Njokuani is just a better striker. He's more composed. He's more technical. He's just overall the better striker. Now, if Elizeu Zaleski was smart, he would bring Chidi Njokuani to the canvas, because Zaleski has much better grappling than Chidi Njokuani. Zaleski has excellent grappling, and that does seem like the smartest path to victory against someone like Chidi Njokuani. However, guys, Zaleski's quite old now, and following that game plan, following that correct game plan as you get a little bit older, it becomes more difficult. So if Zaleski doesn't follow the right game plan, if Zaleski doesn't bring Chidi Njokuani to the canvas and he just strikes on the feet, that's where I can see Chidi landing effective kicks, potentially dropping and stopping Zaleski. So for me personally, I'm going to predict Chidi Njokuani to find a KO TKO in the co-main event. That's my pick. And I'm assuming that Chidi Njokuani is a favourite, hopefully not a massive favourite. He's minus 190, -200. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze, a 5-round main event rematch. And in the first fight, I took Marvin Vettori and it was a very close fight. Vettori just about got the better of Dolidze. However, Vettori's a little bit older now. He's coming off surgery from last year and the wear and tear is starting to add up on Marvin Vettori. He does have more experience than Roman Dolidze. He's already proven that he can outclass Dolidze. But this time round, it's a 5-rounder. And I'd also make the point that Marvin Vettori is better suited to a 5-round fight. Whereas Roman Dolidze doesn't really have the cardio for 5 rounds. He's definitely gotten better over the last 2 years. But he's not really proven to be a fighter that can go 5 rounds. Typically, he's always tired after those first 10 minutes. And that's mainly down to the fact that he's got so much muscle. However, this fight's taking place in the smaller octagon. So Dolidze won't have to chase down Marvin Vettori. He won't have to use as much energy to find a home for his strikes. And there's also a chance that Dolidze can get takedowns this time round, you know, being in the smaller octagon. But again, Dolidze doesn't really have the cardio to go 5 rounds. So if he's going to win this fight, if he's going to win this main event rematch, he might actually have to stop Marvin Vettori, which isn't an easy thing to do because Marvin Vettori is notoriously known for being extremely tough. But at the same time, Marvin Vettori is coming off surgery. He might not be as durable as what he's shown to be over the years. And I kind of think that Roman Dolidze can win this rematch. But it's certainly a tough prediction to make. And I'd advise that if you're going to bet this fight, if you're going to bet this main event, go light. Don't go too heavy on this main event because it's such a tough prediction to make. And guys, by the way, my main event predictions this year have been phenomenal. I've picked every underdog that's won in the main event in the UFC this year. Mackenzie Dern, plus 170. Nasruddin Imavov, plus 150. Jared Cannonier, plus 220. Magomed Ankalaev, plus 100. You know, the only main event that I haven't got this year was DDP versus Sean Strickland, the rematch. That's the only main event that I've got wrong. Every underdog that's won in the main event this year, I have picked. And I'm telling you right now, this main event right here, Marvin Vettori against Roman Dolidze, the rematch, it's a very difficult fight. It can go either way. You can get Marvin Vettori, who's going to win mainly because there's an extra 10 minutes. Or you can get Roman Dolidze that's competing against Vettori, someone he's already lost to, but you're going to get takedowns this time round, and you're fighting against Vettori, who's coming off surgery. So Roman Dolidze might actually stop. He might drop him. He might get a ground and pound stoppage. And in my opinion, I think Roman Dolidze is going to win the rematch. He's going to win this rematch. But like I say, it's such a tough prediction that if you're going to bet this main event, you should make it a light bet, a very light bet. But my prediction will be Roman Dolidze via stoppage on the ground midway into the fight. And the odds have Roman Dolidze plus 140. So yeah, he's already lost this fight and he's not a 5-round fighter. So that does make sense. But I think Roman Dolidze as an underdog, that might be the pick. That might be the play. As always, my homies, drop down your main event, your co-main event, your doubles, your straight bets, your parlays, your money city bets. Drop all that in the comment section below. And as always, keep your eyes to the sky and never glued to your shoes. Let's go. Peace.